Hello, and welcome to a very special segment of the Nintendo Jump podcast. My name is Darrel. This segment actually appeared in the second half of episode 71 of our podcast, but it was so cool that we wanted to break it off into its own thing as well. So, if you don't know about our podcast, one of the things we do is a Game of the Month series where we focus on a single game that we'll play for the whole month with our community. And then at the end of the month, we'll do a full review episode and breakdown of the game, our experiences with it, and so on. So for October, our game of the month was actually Killer Queen Black. If you don't know about Killer Queen Black, it's a competitive online team-based multiplayer game that's really based in arcade gameplay. I can't really do it justice here, so please check out videos on it to learn more because the game is awesome. I mean it. It's really good. We actually ended up giving it a 9 as part of our review. But as part of the review episode, I got to have a call with Adam and Mike, two of the developers from Liquid Bit, to talk about the game, their experiences developing it. So we talked for a long time about how it was made, their design decisions, their favorite moments in making it, and just a ton more. The conversation actually ended up being so cool that we wanted to release this special segment just including that interview. So I really do hope you enjoy it. I also hope that you will check out Killer Queen Black and the Nintendo Jump podcast. We will include links to information on both of those in the description of this episode. So for now, on to the interview. Hope you have fun. Thanks. All right, hello, and welcome to another one-on-one with Darrel. Today, I am super excited to be joined with two members from Liquid Bit, Adam and Mike. How are you guys?
Good. Doing well, thanks.
So for anybody who's not aware at this point, Liquid Bit is the developer of Killer Queen Black, which is, as you guys know, our game of the month for October. So all this month we've been talking about it. This is going to be linked to our actual full review of the game itself and just kind of a final breakdown. I'm super excited for this. So I guess just to kind of jump in quickly, can you guys quickly talk about your actual involvement with the game, like your different roles?
Sure. So Mike and I'm the CTO, and Mike is chief architect, but we're a studio of three. Matt Tesh is our CEO and kind of, big time, like doing all the production and coordinating between, all the different people, that contractors and ourselves and features. But Mike and I are primarily, in the code developing.
Oh, that's awesome. So you guys are going to be the ones that I'll be able to get into all the balancing and how we actually got this game. That's great. Can you tell us a little bit about actual Liquid Bit? Like, how did you guys come to be? How did you guys form? What have you worked on? That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story, actually. It kind of goes back quite a ways, but to give you kind of the skinny of it, the three of us, me, Matt, and Adam, we used to work together at a company called Okta. I actually worked with Matt at a company before that called Fueled. We merged with Okta, Adam came on, and then our company got acquired by Salesforce. So we've been working together for a long time. We used to build mobile apps, actually.
Nice.
We were building iPhone apps, and one of our clients, dude from Texas, man, he was just like, hey, I've got some capital. I want to build a video game. Why don't you guys, I don't know what you're doing there at Salesforce, but if you want, let's start a company and see what we can make of it. So that was like 3 years ago. I know it's like a really weird story. Like this never happens, right? But yeah, we did. We put in our 2 weeks notice and we started this thing. Been doing it ever since. So I went to school for game programming. Adam didn't have any game development experience, but we worked on a lot of stuff together, and we're confident that we could do something that wasn't like, a full like AAA 3D shooter or something, So.
Which, by the way, thank you.
Yeah, seen enough of those.
Yeah. No, that's really cool. I mean, it's not every day like somebody just approaches you, hey, I got lots of money, do something.
I know, right? Yeah, it was kind of crazy. It's been a wild ride. A lot of learning. It took us about 3 years to build this. And we knew we wanted it to be like some kind of networked, multiplayer game, some kind of team-based thing. We didn't know what that was going to be, but we were just kind of building the tech around that to try to get that going. We did that for a long time. We didn't even have a game. We just had like a prototype.
Mhm.
But we went to Logan Arcade here in Chicago, and they have, Killer Queen Arcade, 10-player, 2 teams of 5, awesome game that we played and fell in love with. Like, wow, wouldn't it be great if we could somehow do something like that? We built a prototype pretty quickly, and we got in contact with Bumble Bear Games, guys in New York that actually built the arcade. We sent them a demo of what we had. We played it, and they're like, wow, this is actually better than we thought it would be. Shortly after that, we flew out to New York, and we did like a little game jam with them, kicked around some ideas, and then started a formal, partnership. And we've been working with them ever since. Yeah.
That's awesome. So you had kind of the tech built and were just looking for a game to to throw it
Yeah.
on, and came across one of the coolest arcade games there is.
Yeah, like I said, we fell in love with it. And the partnership we formed with them has been really great because obviously Mike and I are very much on the technical side of things. We like video games and whatnot, but don't really know that much about designing them. And Josh and Nick are both game designers who obviously put a lot of care in that game and are really great at what they do. So kind of like we complement each other really well in that sense. That was kind of a big missing thing from our perspective. And I know they've enjoyed having us, hashing out the tech stuff with them. So it's been a really great partnership and great experience.
That's awesome. I didn't know any of that. So you took this arcade game that is huge actually, and you kind of you went through the route of putting this on a console. I mean, what would you say are like the biggest challenges to actually getting it on the console? Was it more of a making sure it was stable online, or more like process oriented challenges? Can you talk through some of that?
Sure. I mean, definitely there was technical challenges. Not necessarily just console, but when we were developing the tech beyond wanting it to be an online game, it was really important for us to make it cross-platform, and that's something Mike, he's kind of been our network guy and just really cranked out and built it from the ground up, knowing that. So it's never been like we were locked into a PC-only networking option or some proprietary service that maybe one of the big console makers provides, that maybe is more challenging to integrate between the two. So having that from the get-go, networking is always hard, but I think we kind of mitigated a lot of that risk by knowing up front and always keeping that in the back of our minds that cross-platform is super important to us. And so there's definitely challenges, especially with like UI stuff between the platforms, different hardware specs, all those things have always been the case. Do you got any that come to mind?
Well, I mean, like maybe to take a step back, really, it's like you're talking about like a 10-player arcade game, right? You want to bring that to console, and we knew that like multiplayer was going to be like the cornerstone of that. We knew it needed to work. Excuse me, it needed to work well over the internet, and the experience had to be, just about the same as you standing next to somebody at the arcade.
Sure.
Some of the design choices that we had to make to accommodate for that are kind of what you see in the differences between Killer Queen Black and Killer Queen Arcade. Like, namely, we have weapons, right? It's no longer like a joust mechanic where the highest player wins, because we found out very early on that basing kills on height, like who was the highest, when they contacted, wasn't going to work in a network environment. Because due to latency and things, I might see you higher on my screen, but you see yourself lower or something, right? There's always like paradoxes. Anybody that's played multiplayer games is very
for sure
with this, like paradoxes. So we knew that we needed more kind of like a wiggle room. So we started toying around with the idea of kind of like area of attack weapons and things like this to give a little bit more of a buffer, so that you could. It was more based on positioning and where you were strategically, and not necessarily precise, like pixel. I was 2 pixels above you, kind of a thing.
Or like when you hit the button, that if you get a miss, it's there's times when it's just like, hey, you were just too slow at doing it, not something that's just automatic and triggered.
Right. So you basically have it checking when each person hits the button, as opposed to just like a consistent height basis.
Yeah, I mean, it still is. It still like is doing kind of like collision checks and things like this. But
sure,
I think the important thing is that it's kind of more of a volume. So there's a little bit of like, when you play the game, it does for the most part feel like you did get the kill if you got it, right? Due to those volumes. And then like, honestly, we knew that like region-based matchmaking was going to be really important because like in order for you to have a good experience, you need to have low latency. So we want to make sure that people in the same region are kind of playing together. So like a lot of different kind of factors went into like the decisions that we made and the design choices that we made that became, what you see today in Black.
Yeah, that's awesome. Actually, like as the game was coming out, I mean, there was this overall thought of the uninformed masses of like, oh, please don't lag, please don't lag, please don't lag. But honestly, I mean, our group, we have been playing on Nintendo Switch, which is not exactly known for really, really solid online play. I think I can fire a little bit of shots there.
Sure.
But it, any lag at all is like reduced to one person that's kind of skipping around a little bit. I've actually been really impressed with just how the game actually handles lag, even in like cross nation play. Like a lot of us are kind of strewn out, so that's been really cool to see.
Well, that's really great to hear. I mean, we worked really hard on that. And it was something that was very important from the get-go. We feel like the game we were targeting about 100 milliseconds. Like, if you've got about 100 milliseconds, of latency, you could still be pretty competitive. Anything beyond that, it starts to break down a little bit. But we still have a few more tricks up our sleeve in terms of how we're trying to reduce latency. We're working with a partner, a company called Network Next, where they actually provide premium routes through the internet, like a private network.
Oh, nice.
So that you can you pay like a premium, but you have like lower latency and lower jitter and things like this. So even people that aren't playing in the same region should get a better experience. And through our testing, we've seen improvements of up to like 20 milliseconds in some cases. So
oh wow, okay.
Yeah, it's significant. We're really excited. We're coming out with that pretty soon. Like it's going to be in our next patch most certainly. So.
Oh, I mean that trends right into what I was gonna get into next. Actually, if you can you talk about some of the updates you're actually planning for the game? Are we looking to see any more maps or modes or weapons or anything like that?
Yeah, yes to pretty much all of those. The things I can talk about, maps, like we basically kind of loop all that or group all that together as content. So having new maps, there's new weapons that we prototyped and want to continue to experiment with that will hopefully roll out at some time. Cosmetic things like new skins for the workers or queens.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, the main things I can think of from the content side. The thing I've been working on right now, which I can't give a date on when it'll be done, making good progress, is cross-party friends. We know, we try to stay active with the community, like in our Discord, or through Reddit or whatever. And we know that's kind of something that, it just, to be honest, we ran out of time to get to the launch. So like it's cross-platform right now in the sense that everyone is put in the same pool and can compete against one another. So if you're on a Switch, you can, you go to rank match, you could be playing against a PC person as well as a Switch on the same team, all that. What you can't do is like enter a friend code and become friends with someone on a different platform. And then,
sure.
Which kind of prevents you from being able to like party up, which, it's always been something we wanted to do. And so we're kind of focusing on trying to get that done now. That's one I think we're all pretty excited about.
No, that sounds awesome. We do have some players who are playing the game currently on PC as well as Switch, and we've had some of those conversations too. So that's great to hear. So can you talk a little bit about some of the changes that you've actually made from Killer Queen Arcade? Because I think we've kind of got into it, and obviously there's new weapons. It's down to 4 versus 4. You can throw berries and such. Can you talk about how some of that came to be, what the design methods were?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, Nintendo Switch was on our radar. Sorry, excuse me. Nintendo Switch was on our radar. We weren't sure that we were going to be on that platform, but we knew that like we wanted to be, right? So we knew that we needed to design for like a smaller screen size. And so it was like important that you be able to like kind of make out certain details in that like smaller form factor. If you look, I believe like one of the major differences between arcade and black is like the size of the characters with respect to the size of the platforms. Like I think we're the opposite of them actually, right? Like the characters are like really tiny in the arcade and the platforms are like big. And in black, it's kind of the opposite. And I think part of the reason for that is because like a lot of our weapons are like very dashy. Like you're moving around a lot. You know, it's kind of zany, especially with the queen, right? So we didn't want the platforms to kind of get in the way of that. So we're trying to create like a lot of negative space to allow you to kind of move around and not get frustrated or clip corners or things like that.
Yeah. The other thing with the, I mean, and this kind of was one of the first things we kind of came to a conclusion on when we, went to New York after first, coming to an agreement and deciding to partner with Bumblebear was, in the arcade, you're inches away from a giant, screen in front of you. So those smaller characters are easier to make out. But, whether it's on the Switch, like Mike mentioned, or, you have it in dock mode, or you're just, sitting back on your couch, those things become a lot harder to see when they're not right in your face, I guess, like they are in the arcade. So that's why the map is a little bit smaller, characters a bit bigger, just kind of, tweaking between those two things. Other than that, I mean, I don't remember how I think it was just through lots of, game, doing testing and stuff like that, that we kind of, we made it really easy. So it's kind of just a config file that you could live update. So you could tweak things like the speed of flight, speed of the runners, tune the jump parameters. So the kind of pace of the game, I think largely just came through, trial and error and just iterating, over and over again.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I was gonna ask, with all these changes, so new weapons, smaller maps, 4 versus 4, you can throw berries and such. Like, how was that balancing act that you guys did? Like, the arcade game is extremely well balanced, but I would also say the console game is too. How'd you accomplish that?
That's it's really a testament to Bumblebear Games, to be honest. I mean, we worked every day with those guys, like not side by side, like telecomming, right? But they were heavily involved in the design process. We did a ton of play testing. We knew, and through the beta, to be honest, too. I mean, we did a lot. We put it in people's hands. We watched replays of the game. And we saw what was working, what wasn't. I remember one thing in particular. I think as a gag, I added berry tossing. I just kind of added it one day. I was just like, as a hack, I'm like, hey guys, check this out. This is kind of cool. And it made it in, right? But
yeah,
like the repercussions of that are like it trickles. It's like, okay, well, if runners can just toss berries now. If you can get really good at that, you can just like rush through an econ win, and then it became overpowered, right? Which debalances the whole game. And so we were like kicking around. We almost removed it actually because of that. We were almost like, do we need to take berry throwing out? This is getting out of hand. And then Josh DeBonis, Bumblebear Games, I think he worked with Nick on this, but they decided to like just kind of nerf the speed of the throw, I believe it was.
And we tried to, and we used to have a longer cooldown, I think. Like, yeah. I don't think anyone really likes the feel of a cooldown. Mm-hmm. So we wanted to minimize that as much as possible, but not, make it 0 so people can just stand on berry piles and just throw them out. I mean, They still can do that in a way today, but it's not as bad as it was at times. And I think he moved a lot of, that's where the berry piles being hanging vertically. Yeah. Or hanging from like ceilings.
That was so you have to have that jump.
Yep, you'd have to do that jump to get it. So that was like kind of a cool way to like not have this as bad of a cooldown feel, but still kind of delay that ability, just clear out a pile and just throw them all on the ground.
Well, what's fun about it is it's like one more concern for the game designer when they're creating a level. It's like I can't place a berry pile like in a direct lane to the hive because people can just like spam throw them in really quickly.
Yeah, except for that one map where you put that very alluring pile right between the two hives. Yeah,
that tally. Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. That one always gets a lot of fun. And one thing that we have seen from berry throwing is teams get really good at throwing to each other.
Yeah.
Actually, so you'll have one person kind of stationed in the hive, making sure all the berries actually make it in. It's really fun, actually. So I gotta ask, you have bots in the game, so you can fill in spots with hypotenuse and other awesome named bots. How did you go about making the AI? Because they seem really good. I mean, was this like a big trial and error process? Did you have any like funny moments where they were doing something unintended?
Oh yeah, tons of those. It still happens. But I think I started on a version of the AI a while back. And then Josh and Nick knew a student at NYU, Ahmed, who, kind of jumped in and helped us out, and, got busy with, being in school and whatnot. So there's a point where he kind of, got the ball rolling. And, it's one of those things that, when you're doing some of the pathing, it's hard to do in line with map changes as the maps are evolving. It might expose some sort of edge case or, basically an unsolvable issue that the AI runs into. So, I mean, we've had all sorts of like runners just standing still at times, and so it's a little bit of both. I mean, we kind of knew certain approaches we wanted to do, but there was also just a lot of trial and error to see what situations they would get in, like what might be going on inside of their AI brains, and trying to figure out how to get around that. So
yeah, it's funny. It's like I'm at Khalifa. Shout out to him at NYU. He helped us a ton there. But I kind of took over. He had to pull off at one point. I kind of adopted all of that code and tried to bring it home. One of the challenges was like some of our maps, like they're, in order to deposit berries, you have to do some kind of like tricky moves in certain maps. I'm terrible with the map names, but there's like one where it's like you have to like jump on a tiny little ledge in like the middle of the hive, and then you have to like jump out, and there's like 3 holes. The only way you can get them is by doing that.
Oh, yeah.
Had to like write specific code just to handle like that, right? So it's like if we ever release a new level, or like when we're actually getting close to, our designer's working on one right now. I'm sure I'm gonna have to load the level up, and it's like, who knows what's great. So,
you just have workers running around in a circle. You're like, oh no.
Yeah, question marks. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, that's awesome. I will say, like, especially as workers, man, they just seem to be doing something useful most of the time. So it's nice to see. So I saw some of the footage of you guys and your team and Bumblebear at Nintendo Treehouse. That you guys briefly spoke on what it was like working with Nintendo. Based on that conversation, I mean, you got it running on Switch really quickly, at least an initial build. Is that true?
Yeah. We had to. It was by the time we decided or figured out we were going to E3, and by the time we had to be ready for E3, like there wasn't much time. So thankfully, it was a really smooth process to get up and running.
For the most part.
Yeah.
So we use Unity, right? For anybody who's in the game dev or heard of Unity.
Okay.
So they shipped us a few dev kits, pretty quickly, and I just got rolling on it and fixed errors as they came up. But I think within a day, I got it at least like compiling, and then by the end of the week, you could actually play a game. But then like we had a bunch of performance issues because the Switch is like, it's an amazing console. I love it, but like the hardware on it leaves a lot to be desired. And
yeah, of course.
Even though we're just a little pixel game and the camera doesn't move and stuff, you'd be surprised. Like there were some issues there, but we were able to get it going, and it ran pretty great at E3. We didn't have any issues. I was really surprised, like save for a few minor bugs, but they were actually just gameplay bugs that would have been there anyway. So
yeah.
I bet that was a relieving feeling when you didn't have any big crash moments or anything like that.
Oh yeah, especially when they came down to our booth.
Yeah.
I think Mike and I were playing, and it was just like, please don't crash now. Of all the time, don't crash now.
I don't think we got one crash.
No.
Yeah, we're really lucky there.
So can you talk about a little bit about the response that you've had to the game, both on Switch and other platforms? Has it met the expectations that you kind of set forward through it? Has it been better, or
So
what's it been like?
This whole thing has been really surreal, right? Because like we've never built a game before, and we worked with a contractor that helped us out a ton, especially during like the later parts of development and getting ready. And he's been working in the industry for a long time in some capacity, and he's like, first of all, he's like, I can't believe this is your first game. This is a lot to take on, like all this networking stuff and everything. It's crazy. He seemed pretty confident. He was like, you guys are gonna do okay. But like, we have no idea, right? We had no idea what to expect. So we're like, man, I think internally we're like, man, if we can get like an 8 out of 10 in reviews, that would be awesome. And then like, October 10th, the day before we released the game, all the review sites kind of, put up their reviews. And, I think it started at like 8.5, 8.6 and lowered down a little bit. But like the reviews we got were phenomenal. And I was almost in tears because I was just like, just biting my teeth, just like, so stressed out about it. But when I saw the positive response that people were giving it, that was awesome. And then like we have a pretty active Discord community, and the people in there are great. We have a really great community, and we've been getting a lot of great feedback from them, a lot of great like feature requests, quality of life things. But like for the most part, yeah, we've been really pleased with the response that we've gotten.
And even beyond like the Discord community, we've gone to Logan quite a few times. We've met a good number of the people in the Killer Queen community, the arcade community. And, they travel all over the country going to tournaments, a very tight-knit group. And, you never know how a game that they, spend so much, time and energy and love on, how they're going to respond to it. And they have their own Killer Queen Black room in Slack. And, I've talked to some of them, and they've all just been great. There's clearly differences, and I always tell people it's an evolving project for us. We're not done. We're going to keep adding stuff and keep, we try to listen and provide, our feedback to others' feedback. But the arcade community's been great, so that was really nice to see as well.
Yeah, I bet that was relieving too, that they're not like, oh man, this is not my Killer Queen.
Yeah. That's kind of like what we wanted, is the two to kind of, feed off of one another and, cross-pollinate. Like we really hope that, people maybe get exposed to Killer Queen Black and then decide to go check out the arcade because they've never done so before.
Cool.
And you should, because it's an awesome game.
Yeah. It definitely is. So one of the differences from the arcade actually is some of this background art in the stages, which is just some of it is just like jaw dropping. It's actually really pretty in this game. Was that kind of something that you guys started with, or was it just something that was added on later on in development? Like how did that art come to be?
I think that's another kind of like a follow-up answer to your previous question about like what are some of the changes when you go to console, versus arcade.
Yeah.
Like arcade, you get away with very little. It's like you don't really need flashy, fancy graphics. I mean, the gameplay speaks for itself. But we knew to be kind of appealing. Maybe I say competitive, like in the industry that we're trying to break out into. We knew we needed to kind of up the game a little bit in terms of like presentation, graphics, things like that. We were very fortunate to come across this amazing artist, and his name's Blake Reynolds, and he did a majority of all of that, like the background arts and stuff. He just did a phenomenal job, like continuously impressed by the work that he's put out. And I mean, most of what you see there in terms of like gameplay art is his doing, and he just did a phenomenal.
Oh, wow.
And he did a lot of the concept stuff too. It wasn't just like, taking.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like he would, I mean, he would look at pictures of bugs over and over and just like get ideas from that. It was almost like too technical, but it really paid off. Even like the gates. A lot of people don't realize when it closes, it kind of gets this like mantis or insect head that it kind of forms into, and that was all just like. Him coming up with some concepts, and then, Mike and I weren't always involved in those calls, but, it'd be bringing Nick and Josh and Matt. They'd have like an art review that would just, they would just tweak stuff. He would like live edit things in Photoshop, show him as he's going. But yeah, he's absolutely incredible.
That's awesome. I mean, similarly, you also have kind of an awesome soundtrack, and the one thing I've really grown to like about the game is how the soundtrack is kind of developed in the sound effects of the game. So as the workers promote or get berries or stuff, it all kind of forms this musical soundtrack. Were you guys ever tempted to actually have music playing in the background of the matches, or was that always kind of the design going forward?
Great question. To be honest, I'm not entirely sure why we decided not to do music during gameplay.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that was another thing, like similar to the art calls they'd have audio reviews. And that was definitely something that people had different opinions on, on whether they should or shouldn't. But I don't know a definitive reason or who won that argument, but it was definitely something that, and one's the wrong word. It's just something that was debated for quite a while. And then we decided to go with this. Sometimes, the background music can get a little like distracting and kind of, and those, with so much going on in the game, like picking up on what those cues are, I think really helps you. So like if you turned down the sound effects or turned up like, background music, you might lose some of those clues that you're, trying to pay attention to.
Right. I've kind of noticed that as you play the game, you can kind of tell what's going on without seeing it, which is neat. I like the way it's done personally. Just curious about it. Okay. So I'm going to get into a few of the more fun questions here. So of you guys, what would you say is your favorite win condition in this game?
Ooh, good question. I mean, how can you not say snail, right? I mean, it's so important, especially when you sneak in, they have no idea. And, I'll even get a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Cocky, I guess. Just start to throw up haha emojis.
Oh yeah.
But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm more military. I always played first-person shooters and stuff growing up. I was just always kind of more action Rambo based, kind of go in, and do some damage. So I'd probably gravitate towards military.
I guess I would say econ. I mean, part of the game is 3/4 of the military victories are probably because someone put the queen in a situation they shouldn't be in because they added pressure from the berries or from snail. But I like the teamwork aspect, and I love some of the battles that happen at the entrance to a hive, where it's just or even blocking that as a warrior is just such a good feeling when you're just stopping them from getting that last berry in.
Yeah, and what's interesting about military victories is if you ever watch, Bubble Bear just did Bumble Bash, which is their yearly tournament that they hold for the arcade game.
Sure, yeah.
And if you ever watch gameplay, top tier players, those games can go on for 15 minutes, no joke. Our games are usually a minute if we're lucky, it's usually really short.
90 seconds.
I think a lot of that is because you give the queen such a powerful weapon. She can dash and dive. She's all over the place. But players, I don't think have quite realized how precious the queen is, and they kind of just go all out. So I'm interested to see how the meta evolves there. If people start playing more of a conservative queen style, and see if the match or the games start getting a little bit longer, what happens there. But yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And we actually had a little poll. It was only up for about an hour, but I think snail win was 80%, 86% of the votes or something like that. It was crazy. Okay, what is your favorite skin and dance for the workers?
Checkers.
Same.
Yeah. The robot.
Yeah, and I mean, robot aside, I've always liked his outfit before. We didn't add that till kind of late in the dev process. It's one of those nice to have things, but I'm so glad we did add it. But it is my favorite dance too.
Totally. What was that? Was it? We were just joking around or whatever. We were saying wouldn't it be hilarious if we had an outtake of Checkers doing the robot dance at post match, and then he trips and falls off the platform,
spins and gets too wound up.
That's awesome. Yeah, and most people have to kind of learn that you can make them dance. But Checkers has been my favorite from day one, which actually that leads me to does the snail or the workers or the queen, do you guys have internal names for them?
I can answer the snail one because I jokingly, someone asked that in Discord, and I gave the first name that came off the top of my head, and everyone kind of jumped on it. So I guess it's canon now. I said Winston is the snail's name.
Yeah, I don't know if we get in trouble for that because it's really Bubble Bear's lore. But
well, I was talking to one of the game designers, Chris Wallace, that helped us out, and we decided they're different snails between the games. So.
Okay, yeah, that works.
Fair enough. That's awesome. I'm gonna start using that. Do you have a favorite snail pun or joke that you keep coming back to with this game? Because it can get kind of memey, which is great.
Snail ones, I'm not sure.
I usually don't hear snail ones. Why? Like, do you have any? Like, what are some you've heard?
Oh, I don't know. This is one of our listeners being weird. No, we actually started gathering these questions, and inevitably somebody said the same question that somebody else did, and we all jumped on that as you just snailed them because you asked this. It's the opposite of ninja'd, but yeah.
Okay. Snailed it, I've said before.
Yeah, I guess I think so.
Yeah.
And that just reminds me of at the not this past Bumble Bash, but the one before that. We went up there to Portland for it, and we brought some Switches and had like the first Killer Queen Black tournament. And me, Matt, and Mike formed a team, and our name was Chuck Berry, which I like that one.
That's awesome.
That
one's a deep one. I like that. Okay. How many different end scenes are there, such as like headshot, that kind of thing?
I think they finally found them all by playing custom match, but let me see if I can count them out. 7, I want to say. I guess I could just look at the code, but I want to say 7.
Do you have a favorite? Mine is probably That's Amore.
Yeah, that's definitely it.
Amore, yeah, that's a great one. That one was actually found pretty quick. I think it was like maybe a day or two after something.
Yeah, we found it on the first day by complete accident.
Yeah. We'd see it at like PAX or something. People had never played the game, and it would just happen. It was pretty cool. Our artist, Ika, when she made that one, and she did all like the UI, basically the non-pixel stuff that we were talking about from our other artist. She actually had listed out what all of those chocolates were, in great detail. Like,
oh, wow.
What's sprinkled on them, what's inside of them.
Swizzle
so who knows? Maybe come Valentine's Day, we'll have those on the merch site. Yeah.
I hope so. And just a couple more. Are there any other games that you guys are playing in the office that you really like now? Any other influential games or games that are important to you? Like, what's your favorite game?
I mean, games that we play in the office. Towerfall, I think, is probably the biggest one.
Yeah. I was gonna ask about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, anytime I've seen their game compared to that, it just blows my mind. Because that's one of my favorite games in the last couple of years, and we have an Xbox sitting at the office, and so we would just fire it up and play all the time.
Funny thing about Towerfall, right? Like, obviously, like, our game wraps around the screen, and to be honest, that was one of the things that gave me the biggest headache developing this game. I got that wrong so many times. Like, so many bugs, like people just getting lost in the wrap or like attacks not
fall off the screen.
And like I remember we'd be like playing Towerfall late at night, and like I think if you get one of the upgrades in Towerfall, the whole screen moves and like everything's wrapping. I'm like, oh my god.
So as I started playing your game, I kind of remembered back to Towerfall kind of using we don't want this game to be online, because it is kind of a twitchy game and lag is actually important. I mean, real quick, have you guys reached out to Matt Thorson and said, hey, let us take your game online?
No,
you don't have to answer that.
No, haven't done that.
Let me write that down.
Yeah.
I think you definitely should reach out to him and say, look what we did. But because I love Towerfall too. I just wish it was online so I could actually, play with more people.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, but like, I love that game so much just because the way it feels, like just the movement mechanics, on point, and that carried over to Celeste, obviously.
Yeah, that was probably my favorite game last year was Celeste.
Yeah, that was my game of the year last year for sure.
Yeah.
It was awesome. Finally, I think. Well, no, two more. This is an odd question. I apologize in advance. What is your favorite chess piece if you play chess?
Oh wow.
I don't really know why this one was asked, but it's on my list.
Mine's probably Knight.
Okay.
Yeah.
I never played a lot of chess. I didn't like the knight because like when I was a kid, I always had a hard time figuring out what the right moves were.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I guess maybe the rook.
Okay. I'd probably go bishop there.
Yeah, bishop. Yeah, the diagonal moves are pretty alright.
And one final question for you guys, unless you have anything else you want to talk about. Are you reaching out to Nintendo to get like Queen or Snail or somebody into Smash Brothers? Because I think there might be potential
We
there.
haven't done it yet, but that's been brought up before. It would be a dream come true to see that.
or at worst a Killer Queen stage, which would actually be kind of awesome too.
Yeah,
That was
but
so cool.
no, I mean, who knows? Maybe one day, but we've definitely brought that up before. How cool that'd be a dream.
It really would be awesome. And I mean, is there anything else you guys want to talk about?
I think all I really want to say is just thank you for everybody that's checked out the game. I mean, we put a ton of work into it, and to see the feedback from the community has really made it worth it. So just thank you to everybody that's played.
The feature request, I mean, yeah, just everything, like, especially during our beta, I mean, there were some rough builds that we put out. I mean, like, so everyone that played in the beta too, like, the game wouldn't be what it is without you guys helping. So thank you.
100%.
No, that is awesome. And honestly, thank you guys so much for coming on here. I think this was awesome. Had a lot of fun actually hearing some of the background behind some of the decisions that were made. It's actually great. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. I love your game. So this is
awesome. Thanks.
Is great. But with that, yeah. So Mike, Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show, and we look forward to more updates in the future.
Great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.